All right,
Oh,
I think it's going. I'm just going to confirm, Bob, that we're recording because it's embarrassing when you do the whole thing and you're not. All right, my name's Colin Plante. I'm here with Robert Partridge, Worcester native, retired Navy Master Chief,
yeah.
and a friend of mine for close to 40 years. I grew up with his son in this neighborhood, and this gentleman here has been one of the heroes and great examples of my life. So it's an honor to be here with him today. I'm doing a project on basic computer science, summer 2020, and here's what I've considered in my life kind of one of the men who have grown through close to 40, 50 years of computer technology. So here's Bob, and I'd just like to give everyone a little exposure to what a technician in the field like Robert has seen in his lifetime.
Thank you. My name is Bob Partridge. I'm in my 80s now, but I joined the Navy when I was 19 years old, and I wanted to do communications. So Uncle Sam sent me to school and taught me the International Morse Code. So when I first joined the Navy, that's how we communicated, International Morse Code, dots and dashes. Along the way, we progressed to teletype. We would get signals from the beach or over the air and copy teletype. So we minimized the amount of time we spent sitting on a circuit doing dots and dashes. And shortly before I left the Navy, after 20 years, we got satellites. We started getting involved in satellites. We had no computers per se. But when I left the Navy, the first job I had was with RCA. And I got hired with RCA because I knew how to repair teletypes and printers and stuff like that. So I worked for RCA for about 5 years. And near the end of RCA, we started using these small personal computers. We started just loading them. We didn't troubleshoot them per se, but we just started putting systems on them. We'd divide the disk and put certain things on them for communications only. I didn't do the other fancy stuff. I left RCA and went to work for Wang. That's when I got involved in learning how to troubleshoot broadband, your broadband cable plant, the cable stuff you use for your cable TV. I learned how to troubleshoot the cable plant, along with learning how to troubleshoot wide area networks. Meaning you're sitting on a computer here in Massachusetts and you want to talk to somebody in Hong Kong, so you can't talk to them. So I had to learn how to troubleshoot from that computer across the internet, which you call the internet today, but now it was like what would you call it?
Was it
What you
ARPANET,
troubleshoot, what you install, your phone line. We had to troubleshoot across the phone line, and we get to these megaplexes, get microwave, get over to California. In California, you'd be troubleshooting the Trans-Pacific cable plant, maybe down to Hawaii, and then you get involved troubleshooting a satellite network, maybe to Hong Kong, and then some landline or just some transmitter that was talking to some other whatever. So what was funny was you'd get the computer guys who would program these computers, and they'd come in and they'd say, "You do all of that?" And I said, "Well, you write a program." I said, "You can't talk to the guy in Hong Kong." I said, "But this is how we get there." I said, "We have to work with the phone company." I said, "And everybody else along the way to find out why this thing isn't working."
And you could do all that troubleshooting from one location.
One location. So, and I started learning how to really work. We worked with computers. We used computers to troubleshoot. You know, we put certain boards in there to communicate from one to another. So that's just the involvement I had with computers was learning, taking the cards that we used to communicate with. You know, I left Wang after about 4 or 5 years and went to work for Digital Equipment Corporation, where I picked up local area networks. So I taught the guys in the group that I worked with. We worked in a network and troubleshooting group. I taught them broadband, I taught them wide area, they taught me local area. And that's where we get into troubleshooting within the building, so to speak. This computer can't talk to the computer on the second floor, so why? And we learned how to work with routers and everything. And then we started working, I think, more closely with computers. I work with computers, I use them to troubleshoot. And the systems we had on was troubleshooting, like Colin works for a phone company. Well, one of the senior people in the phone company that we work with used certain equipment. We use computers. And I got such a good relationship with one of the girls, one of the managers, so to speak. I showed them how we used our computer, and it turned out it was the same equipment that they use troubleshooting their network. We use the same programs.
Wow.
They just used it on a box. We used it on a computer.
So at this point, when you're working with customers like that, was there an internet? Like, I remember as a kid, you had the first computer in that living room over there that I'd ever seen. You were using floppy disks.
Yeah.
At that time, and when you're doing this, how would they transfer information from one place to another? Over the phone lines? Was there fiber optic at that point?
Mostly phone lines when we started troubleshooting. Digital had its own network. It was second to ARPANET. ARPANET is the largest internet. It's the government, ARPANET. So what they call the internet today, Digital had a hand in developing. They had the largest. Their network was the second largest to the government's network. So the internet, as you know it today, is just, you can get on the internet via phone line, via satellite. And like you say, back then we used floppy disks, 3-inch floppy disks, and we went from floppy disks to the hard disks. And now you got stuff like you're sitting here with this phone.
It's supercomputer.
Yeah.
It seems like compared to what we had years ago. It's amazing where the technology's gone in my lifetime.
Yep.
And how many? So when you started in the Navy, 1959, you joined the service, and you go in. You're going, and I love going like down a Battleship Cove with the kids, and you go in there, and you can see you're on a battleship that's old. There's an old submarine. What type of technology is it? Was that computer technology that they had in there? Was it?
Well, I retired from the Navy in '79. They started using computers and stuff for, fire direction, fire control. And probably up in a bridge for navigation. But they were just starting when I left. In fact, at one point, things were advancing so much in the Navy. Like, I retired in '79, but I had said somewhere around 1960, I was talking to someone, and I said, one of these days, I says, instead of having 8 or 10 radio men, I says, to the Radio Shack, I said, there's going to be a chief petty officer, or maybe a couple of other young seamen. I said, Chief's going to walk in here in the morning, and he's going to say, okay, computer, print me out the important messages for the night. Let me know what the status is. Did you send the right stuff to the captain, to the executive officer, or whatever? And by the way, pour me a cup of coffee. And if you look at today's technology, and I said that back in the '60s, if you look at today's technology, you got people saying, Alexa,
It's true. Yep.
turn on the lights for me, please. Start the coffee pot. So I wasn't looking into the future per se, but I seen stuff evolving so much. I said to myself, and that's probably what's happening aboard ships now. There's no longer radiomen aboard ships. They're information technicians. So they went, just like the ITs out here in the civilian world, they went from being radiomen into information technicians. And they split them up into being information technicians who do programming and working on computers solely programming wise, and troubleshooting them to people who do the same thing I did, but they do it now with computers and satellites and these little phones.
It's amazing. It's gone from there, from the Morse code.
Yeah.
You did Morse code every day? You were in that?
Well, when I first joined the Navy, that's how we communicated. That was our primary means of communicating between ships.
And how would that transmit from ship to ship? Over a radio wave?
You set up a transmitter. You had antennas aboard the ship. You set up a transmitter. Transmitters were connected to the antenna. And then you had a pass panel. So you had the receiving antennas coming into the pass panel. and you set up a transmitter and you just transmit out, and you throw a switch to say, all right, on that receiver, I'm going to put up such and such a frequency. You put the headphones on and sit down in front of the typewriter, start typing. And in that same position, you had a key, an international key. So you do the code.
And how far would that go? So when you went out on a cruise, you have
Well, there
10 ships?
was a time that I was sitting in the Mediterranean, and I sent a message to NSS, was the call sign, was in Washington, D.C. So that's the person I could pick up.
So how did you get that across the? Did you bounce it off the atmosphere? Or does it go up and?
It's a radio signal. You know, did you just depend on you? We had books that would turn around and say, at this certain time of day, in this area of the world, this frequency is probably best.
Okay.
So you'd set that up. On ship to shore, they called it ship to shore. On all the ship to shore frequencies, your captain would come in and hand you a message, and he'd tell you what the precedence was of it: flash message, priority message, routine message. I want to send this to whoever on another ship in another part of the ocean, or in the same ocean, or within the same task force or task group. And you just come up on a frequency and you'd send the call sign. You all had call signs. The ship I was on when we first doing a lot of international Morse code was NHNF. Dotted, did-it, dotted, did-it, dotted. So you knew, you're sitting here and you always had your speakers up. Like I say, you had 2 or 3 speakers in a Radio Shack. You're listening to 4 or 5 different things. And you just hear that dotted, did-it, dotted, did-it, dotted. So someone's calling you. On that, you had to speak. You knew what frequency it was on. You just went over, sat down to position and answered.
And would you have to interpret it live, or would it come across a teletype machine so you could give it to the?
You head to fingers to typewriter.
Ooh. It's a very proficient typer at a young age.
Well, when I graduated from, they call A school. They send everybody in the Navy that goes to different trades. They'll go to different schools. I went to Radioman A school. In Radioman A school, they taught you transmitters, receivers, and stuff like that. And you learned the International Morse code. To graduate from school, you had to be able to copy 24 words a minute. And you reached the point that you got proficient enough. We use a speed key. A speed key is just with a regular hand key, you push it with your fingers. With a speed key, you just use 2 fingers and you just hold the key one way and it'll for dits, and hold it another way for dashes. So all you're doing it faster. You can go faster. So the longer you used it, the more your speed increased, the more proficient you got. And you also had to sit there and listen. I mean, if you got shortwave radio, turn up shortwave radio and listen. You hear all kinds of stuff out there. So you knew you wanted to talk to NSS in Washington, D.C., their call sign, you know. So you call them, this is, and then you listen. And out of all the crap you heard out there and the people, because you got everybody out there trying to send messages to ship to shore. You got 4 or 5 different comm centers that take this message to be able to pass it on landline to parts of the States or over in Europe, and they're all talking at once. So you got to pick out the tone and the call sign out of all that stuff. It's like sitting in a room with about maybe 50 people, and you're talking to someone on the other side of the room, and you 2 are carrying on a conversation while everybody else is carrying on a conversation.
You were the ultimate computer.
Yeah.
You guys were a human computer, right? Doing all that
Yeah.
processing.
Wow.
And so when you're on the ship, you had transistors and tubes and kind of not into the type of what we're into now, more like chips. That stuff wasn't around. Like you were dealing with it.
No, and after 5 or 6 years in the Navy, I went to what they call B school, which taught me how to repair my own stuff, repair my radio receivers, repair my transmitters. I had already been in teletype school, so I knew how to repair all my teletypes. But yeah, all we did when we had a problem, it was replacing a tube or a resistor or a capacitor or a transistor.
So you'd have to solder. I remember you soldering
Yeah.
here, right? You had all the stuff to work on those boards and to work on the early.
Yeah.
You do your own repairs. So what's the level of, in your lifetime, you're like, so I went to South High in Worcester, and I got out, I never went to college. I'm going to college now in my mid-40s. You had a career where you, and my father, and the great men of my life are constant examples of having to reschool and re-educate, like kind of constant learners. You guys are lifelong learners.
Yeah.
And I watched you do that, like in this household on your own. How much schooling? How many hours as the technology has gone from the Navy to when you went out to work? How many different schools?
I've been to, even when I went to work for Wang and all of them, I was still going to school. So I guess over from the age of 19 when I joined the Navy until I sort of forced myself to retire at age 75, 25, 30 schools.
Different ones. Like every year, I remember you'd fly to places, you'd drive to places, you'd have to, and you'd get together with a network of, you guys were evolving. You guys were the forefront, like you and your peers, I think in a lot of ways, where you'd come to someone and say, well, you've got this thing, this is how you do it, but this is how we fix it. Like you were the kind of the feet on the ground, and you'd have the theoretical, like you said, the programmers who said, well, this is the theory and this is how it goes, but you were the...
Yeah, we walked in, I remember walking in once and there was this machine I'd never seen before in my life. It was probably 40 feet, 40, 50 feet, different bays. And it was bored, somebody had gone in and tried to do something with it. And I just walked in and I'm looking at this thing and thinking to myself, are you kidding me? So the first thing I asked the customer was, I says, you got a book on this? He said, you don't know what you're doing, do you? I says, you got a book on this? He says, yeah. I says, give me the book, please. He says, you don't know what you're doing, do you? I said, can you get the book? Give me the book, please. Give me the book. I looked in. Okay, here's the phone number. I called customer service. I said, hey, I'm out here on site. I said, I got this Windex box. I said, with about 17 bays in it. And I says, and there's no lights on or nothing. I says, how can I strip it down and what do I do? I said, just to turn it on. So he told me, and we did it. And I said, I got a bunch of these cards. I says, looks like it says SES, the WAC. He said, look for one that says CEP. I said, all right, what do I do with it? He says, put it in slot 3. Put it in slot 3. I said, whoa. I said, this baby come up. He says, here's what you have to do. So we did it, and finally he says, I got 2 cards I got to send you, and that should fix it. And I said, okay. I said, how's it going to be? He says, we'll P it, priority it. And I says, yeah. He says, you should have it tomorrow. I said, all right. Hung up, turned around, looked at the guy. I says, sir, I don't have to know what I'm doing. I have to know how to go about getting it fixed. He says, oh. I said, yes. I said, some stuff I know, some stuff I don't. If I don't, and you don't have a book on it, I said, you don't have nothing, I said, that I can look at and read and find out what it's all about. I said, then we're SOL. I said, but if you have a book, I said, I can look at the book and see if I can find something that makes sense to me. I said, if it doesn't make sense to me, if there's a phone number, I said, I call them and say, how do I get this baby up by itself? I said, the cars will be in tomorrow, you'll be up and running. But yeah, you'd get something new and you'd find out, once you were learning, and the person you were working for, the manager, if the manager had the right smarts, he would send you to school on it. And then you had to come back and train other people. You know?
So your peers, so there's and there are certain people that you send to do that. That's in their wheelhouse of being able to. Some people take the knowledge and are expert technicians, but they can't communicate to other people. You're one of them people who work well together and are an excellent communicator.
Well, I think part of it is too because when I had a we were breaking up with something, and my boss turned around. He says, "I want you to teach these guys." He says, "How to do such and such logic." I says, "A lot of what I do is common sense and logic." He looked at me. I says, "I've been blessed with common sense," and I said, "I've been blessed with logical mind." I says, "I can't teach logic." and I can't teach common sense.
Have-
I can give them a cheat sheet to troubleshoot, I says, and I can talk to them and tell them what they should do, I says, but I can't teach it.
What is logic? Like I read it in my book,
Yeah.
in my course, but what is that an evolution of
Well,
program?
you go in, you know, like a guy came in to me one day and he says, I can't talk to San Francisco. And I says, what are you using? I said, I got this they call it a TimeNet box. I says, so you have a modem? He says, yeah. I says, can you get on a computer? I says, can you loop back local to the TimeNet machine? He said, I don't know. I said, all right, you want to loop back local to the TimeNet machine? I said, if you can do that, I said, then you want to put the modem in loop back. I says, towards you. I said, that works. I says, then you want to get to the other end. Have them loop back to you. I says, if that works, I said, then have him do the same thing you did. I said, none of that works. I says, where it doesn't loop back, that's the problem. That's logic. You know, you don't just get up and say, I can't talk to this person in San Francisco. Well, what are you using to talk to them with? Number one, you have to know what the position is. You know. So when I went to interview with 3M, I think it was, I went to interview with 3M, and the guy asked me if I knew anything about token ring. I said no. So he gave me a troubleshooting scenario. And I call it walking the dog. I walked the dog. He says, no, what you want to do first is, and I looked at him and I says, what would you do? I says, I can't talk to that person. I says, you're not going to check out your local loop first? I says, you just told me you're going to jump over there. I said, how are you going to jump over there if you don't know if your local loop is working?
He's the one doing the interviewing.
The logic is just looking at something and saying, how do I go about doing this without... Guy worked with at Wang. He used to troubleshoot computers. Now, like I said, when we troubleshoot we weren't troubleshooting computers, we were troubleshooting networks. But we had to get in a computer and ask certain questions and change certain boards.
What did you ask those questions in? So you'd be in deep. Would you be at like a master computer? So you go into a place and they had like that computer that was the mother keyboard of the whole thing, or would you be writing in code, backslashes, like how?
No, I didn't have to write in code, thank God. But you just go in and you can't talk to. I can't talk to the guy in the next cube. So I know that I go from here to the wall to this RJ45 jack. You know, and from the RJ45 I go over to this modem. All right, so I would just, if I was on a computer, I could bring up, loop back such and such. I could loop it back remotely if the program was on a computer. If the program wasn't on a computer, then I had to go back and physically press the button. But if the program was on a computer, then I could sit on a computer and walk the dogs, like I say.
Would you just change things? Like I find when I work on an automobile sometimes. Now with modern computers, you say, well, I feel it's misfiring a little bit, so you do the cheapest thing first. All right, let me replace a spark plug. All right, let me replace the coil pack. All right, let me replace before you replace the engine, right? You do each.
That's logic.
Would you ever do similar things? Just replace that cord, like make sure that.
You do the most obvious.
Yeah.
It's that, I mean, you're saying this thing don't work. Well, it don't work. Look at all the stuff in between. You know, so when I told this guy how to troubleshoot it, he came back about an hour later. He says, it's still not working. I said, did you loop local? No. I said, go down and loop local. I says, on the TimeNet machine. I says, if you can sit here in your workstation, I said, loop back, I says, at the interface on the TimeNet machine, I said, send a test, type. I said, you type and it comes back to you. I said, that works. I said, take the loop down, loop back the modem. If that works, I says, you're good, but the time machine, the time machine is good, the link between the time and the modem is good. I says, now you want to go to the front of the modem. I says, well, you're going to go across the street. I says, and loop that back towards you. I said, if it doesn't, the modem's bad. I said, if you can loop back, I says, now you want to go across the street. I said, if that don't work, I said, then you tell a guy across the street to do the same thing you just did.
Is that a simple test?
Yeah.
Like you said, just a few
Yeah.
keystrokes, and it's not just.
Yeah. Just you
Yeah,
put it,
good.
you put it in loop back, type anything you want on it, and you type it out, and it should come back. So you get repeat, you type it, and there's another line that comes back. I said, if that works, I said, then you tell the guy across the street to do the same thing you just did. I said, if that works, I says, you call the phone company.
Because it could be out on the lines.
Yeah.
Could be in the plan at a central office.
If you're working in the building, and he's working in the building, and you're not talking to one another.
It's not our problem. Yep. How about security? So as you work, so I heard you say you do the Morse code, and that stuff would go out there in the world. And
Back then, it's like, I mean, even today, if you're going to do international Morse code, if they're not doing secure machines, you can bring up a shortwave radio set
listen or
and
whatever.
listen or whatever.
So people would have to write in code.
Yeah.
They'd have to encrypt things, or
Yeah.
and people could break that.
Yeah, if we had stuff, we'd send out secret, top secret, classified information. We'd run it through a cipher, and it would come up. The quick brown lazy fox jumped over the dog's back. It would come up in 5-letter code, 5 A B C D E space G F, just different random letters. So you use the machine, and you would send that. They'd copy, the other man would copy it, bring it into some individual in the cipher room. He would take that and type it in the machine and come out in plain language. So if you were doing international Morse code, you wanted to send classified information. Everything, they called it encrypted. Everything was encrypted. So you just sending out a bunch of random numbers and letters. But at the front of that, the code turned around and told whoever got it, this is the cipher you use.
Okay, give you a ledge. Yeah, use this.
Yeah, you couldn't just walk into the encryption room and look at it and say, well, what do I use? The first 5 letters, whatever they were, told you what to use.
At what point in your career? So once you retired, and that's highly classified information, and you had to keep that certain transmissions top secret. When you came out into the world and started doing work at places, at what point did security start becoming? Was security always an issue, like because of the content and what you were doing in the technology? And it seems today everything's encrypted.
It was an issue, but not like it is today, because now it's just all over, and you got people that are constantly trying to break in. So
They're knocking on the
Yeah.
You get the Russian hackers, right? That's
Yeah. I mean, there was proprietary information that you couldn't talk about, but the way they got security now, where they have actually IT groups that spend their time scanning the circuits and putting up what do they call them? Not roadblocks,
the firewalls.
firewalls. They keep putting up firewalls, and they keep trying to break it themselves. And if it breaks, then they have to change it and make it a little bit stronger. Yeah, we didn't have that many firewalls and stuff back when I first started.
It's amazing where I think the technology has gone. My kids' lifetimes, with their cell phones, and they start using cell phones, and it seems from about 2012 to now. In the past 8 or 10 years, it's really all consuming. Like you said, Alexa, turn on my TV, and just you talk and things happen.
I mean, the kids come up and say something. They'll say such and such ain't working. I have enough knowledge to be able to get on a computer and it's just logic. Well, this ain't working. It was working. Who did what? What's the most obvious thing to do to correct it? Sometimes they don't find it, so I'll go on the web. Like Carol's constantly taking that bar at the bottom, and it ends up on the side of the computer. I must have spent an hour saying, how, I don't know how she did it. How do I get it back? And I said, this is simple. And that's what my mind tells me when something happens. This is simple because the person is dealing with it doesn't know computers at all. So what did she do to make this bar move. I still don't know what she did, but now I know how to bring it back.
I don't know how she ever got in that deep into. And now you got little kids. Like your grandson Elliot's 5 and Gavin's 8, and they're playing with technology at that age. That he said, a kid does a keys, a couple. No, I just want to play my game, and they don't care what they do, right? They don't care. Put in mom's credit card. Okay, here you go. Like,
But Gavin showed me a few things that I didn't know, a few tricks on a computer, but this stuff he's done where I've just gone in and just thought about it, hit a few things, saw it, changed it, made it work. I mean, that's what I've done all my life. Like I said, I've been blessed with what they call logic and common sense, and I could never understand someone. Like this one guy, Wang, I said he'd run into a problem. He just swapping boards.
So he'd go for the mechanical fix.
Wait a minute. Well, he says, eventually I'm going to find the right board. And I says, stop. I'd go on a car, walk in, a customer, this ain't working. What's wrong with it? It's broke.
Someone hit it with a hammer?
What's the last thing you did? It ain't working. Fix it. Work with me, please. What's the last thing you did? It ain't working. Could you please tell me what the last thing you did was? I says, you were sitting on a computer. I says, typing, it wasn't working. No, I sat down, it won't come on. I says, so it's not coming up at all? No. The computer box was sitting right near her foot, so what she'd done was hit the on-off switch. Or somebody else, this keyboard ain't working. Well, what happened? I finally got the person to tell me he dropped a cup of coffee in it. So I mean, I would never go in and just start taking stuff apart. I'd start asking questions. But there are technicians go in, the customer says this ain't working. They sit down, they start looking at this and looking at that. No, wait a minute. Find out why is it not working. What is it doing that the customer thinks it's not working? And on the other thing I do, when Gavin will do something, and one of the guys at Digital, he'd be doing something, he'd be just frustrated as hell, and I'd go, is this it? Yeah. Oh yeah. What? Just do that. They were afraid to use the book. I mean, that's what the books are for.
Yeah.
You don't know it, and if you're smart, or you're educated enough in technology, read the book.
If you can navigate a book, a manual,
yeah.
And if you're good at that, right? And how many manuals have you dealt with? And once you become good at that, it really is the tool. But I think people are intimidated by it. The content, some manuals could be, shelves. Right back in the day, you probably had some things